Hello. Like I said, I was gonna make a video over the topic of LSATMax and Khan Academy and the resources I've used, and I'm going to deliver that. And the reason why I'm gonna make this video is even though I ended up canceling my score for the LSAT, which was its own, situation, I feel like I can base my experiences off of how prepared I was for the test itself. Like if I felt, comfortable to, oh, my dog, hey Benji. But if I felt comfortable to even take that exam. And so I'm also making this video because I don't want people to go through the experience I did when selecting an LSAT course, specifically someone pushing you or manipulating you into getting into their course just for their good and not really analyzing your needs and such. So, like I said in the beginning, I was using mainly two resources, but I was also using the Logic Games Bible from PowerScore because I've heard a lot of good things about it. But I'll say that I mainly just used LSATMax and also Khan Academy. So, going into my positive experiences, and first we're gonna start with LSATMax. I I like the page layout. So basically, what I mean by that is everything is in sequence or in order as you should progress through things and understand things. So what I mean by that is the topics get easier and then harder. And it's basically trying to build your mastery and the basics of the LSAT. And I genuinely found that pretty good because you go from linear to group games to mixed, all the whole setup, the whole shebang. I feel like they did a pretty good job there. In terms of logical reasoning, the ordering for that, I feel like they did a good job progressing there, from the basics to all the way to more complicated things, but at the same time I found it a bit random. So it was kind of like what they decided to give you, what you should practice next. But also they base a lot of their ordering on their own, what's it called? Like their own calendar that they have. You don't have to follow the calendar. I didn't. I just based a lot of my stuff on what I needed to work on. And if I took a practice exam and I saw that I was doing poorly on reading comprehension, specifically the science passages, then I would focus on that, I would always reorient myself. But if it's your first time, like it was for me, and you have no idea what to do, they have a calendar and they had a whole setup and everything. And I found that very helpful, especially if it's your first time. So, like I said, the ordering makes sense, and if you don't know the LSAT, if you've never taken it, it provides, I guess, the necessary groundwork and background that you need to understand it. So, I felt pretty good about that. So I'm gonna put this in the same category because I feel like it's very relevant. But taking prep tests and then also solving questions on their in just general in their like couplets or stuff like that. So when you take a prep test, they show you all your strengths and weaknesses. And if you had Khan Academy, they do that, but not to the depth that LSATMax does, which is pretty great. I was able to see like they have bars of the strength, how strong I was and how weak I was, the percentage of each of them. I was able to know like specifically what concept I kept messing up on and where I had to redirect all of my focus because when you're studying for the LSAT, or if you don't know yet, but when you study for your LSATs, it's really important not to focus too much on your strengths and then try to hammer a lot on your weaknesses. And I think that goes with anything that you decide to do. Um, and I would say, so the same thing happens when you're answering some LR questions. It goes over your strengths and your weaknesses. Now, the reason why I put them in the same order is because this is where the problems come. Because for some of the questions, they have video explanations, which is absolutely great. And I'm not talking about for LR, I'm also talking about LG, so your logic games. They mostly have they mostly have video explanations. And then for reading comprehension, that's its own thing, and I'll get to that later. So mainly for LR and LG, they have their video explanations. But for the questions that do not have video explanations, you actually have to end up trying to figure out like what the pattern was and why you didn't get it. And sometimes it makes no sense. And the reason why you get a prep course is so that someone explains it to you. Now, the way that they counteract not having video explanations is they have a discussion board, and in this discussion board, you can type in the question and what you don't understand about it, and then they describe it to you in detail. But mind you, they do that for some, and then there's some questions where you would go on the board and you would try to ask whatever question or what you don't understand, and sometimes you don't get an explanation for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or whatever. So that was my number one strikeout, because by that time, either you figured it out on your own or you completely forgot about that question. And let's say you're a few weeks away from your LSAT exam, and you didn't get explanations for this, and this, like your weakest ones, which actually ended up for me somehow, like there were questions I could not understand for the life of me, and I needed explanations for, and I didn't get them until like way out there. And for the most part, they answer between 24 to 48 hours, but I have seen a few cases where that is not the case, and you would especially need it for those questions, the really difficult ones. And in terms of logic games, when they don't have a logic video, they end up writing it all out in the discussion board, like how to solve it. So if you have the logic Bible, everything is pretty much written out, except for their little pictures to make you understand like what their mindset is to show you. When you're trying to read the answer explanations of a logic game in some text, it gets pretty confusing. And I'm just gonna speak for me on this end, because I know I've seen in the discussion board some people understanding, but for me, I felt like they could have taken their time to make a video explanation, especially for the harder ones that they didn't have video explanations for. And I think that was like the biggest red flag for me for LSATMax is that their timeliness on answering questions and failing to have video explanations for even the toughest LR or LG, or waiting a long time to put in those video explanations is just, it's beyond me, and it's frustrating, especially for the price that you have to pay for these LSAT things, honey, because, oh my God, it's getting the anger out of me, but especially for the things that you have to pay for. If you're trying to invest your money into something, you should at least have a proper explanation for the things that you're paying for. Because how are you going to get better? You're not. You're just going to continue doing the easier stuff. So, but they still have their video explanations there, and it has helped me a lot in terms of building up my skill sets. So I'm gonna rank pretty much my LSATMax experience for each section. So for logical reasoning, I'm going to give it an average. And the reason being is because if you know logical reasoning, you are going to need your explanations, correct? If you don't have a video explanation or something like that, it takes a while to understand why something didn't click with you. In logical reasoning, you could swear to God the answer is A, but it actually ended up being answer C because of one little minor detail that you overlooked. And you know what? If you can't pick that out at first and no one's there to help you, then kind of you have to figure it out on your own. But you mainly get to. You're an intelligent person. If you're going to law school, you will figure it out. But I would say pretty average, because I literally did gain a lot from my LSATMax experience in terms of my logical reasoning section, which originally was my weakest, and then it turned into reading comprehension. Game section, I would give it, a good score in their game section, because so like I said, they did the ordering. I was able to progress. The only setback is they don't randomize their questions. And what I mean by that is, okay, so you just tap the linear reasoning section. That's all you're going to get. You tap the group, that's all you're going to get. You don't get the option of mixing questions up and having someone, mixing it up, because you don't want to just continue doing all linear. You want to go back and forth. You want to test all your skills and see how you're doing. But if you want to test it all, then you are going to have to go back into a different tab and then practice on this, practice on that. So the section that I'm going to give them below average is their reading comprehension. If there's anything that you're going to use for reading comprehension, do not use LSATMax. I feel like they are the worst for your reading comprehension. And the reason being is when you sign up for LSATMax, maybe it's for what I paid for, but they give you a series of textbooks. And so for everything else, so logical reasoning and the logic games, you are going to get an online digital version of the question so that you can practice and you can be timed on. For reading comprehension, you only get the textbook. And the textbook itself, I feel like it's pretty sloppy. And this is just me being frank. It feels like it was sloppily done. Let me see if I can find... Let me see if I can find it. So there was a situation with the reading comprehension that I'm trying to find where basically, reading comprehension is pretty long. And so you would try to read the whole thing and find all the questions. So it gets kind of confusing the way that they do things, and you have to really pay attention. So here you have all your reading comp stuff, and then it stops here at although, and so it continues, right? And then this is how the questions look. It may be in reverse. Oh no, let me see after I send in this video. But then you look back and then you're being timed and you're like, oh, where does it continue? And then you see, oh, it continues up here. And so you might overskip that or something like that. And I'm just trying to point it out because there's important information here in one of the questions. And I was like, where does the although continue? So I feel like they could have condensed it a little better, or at least, find a way, because it happens a lot. So yeah, and I think mainly that's just for me, but they only have a textbook for this, and you cannot do practice reading comprehension sets on their site. And the only way you can practice reading comprehension is using, prep tests. So that's the only way you're going to get it. So you're going to do everything on pen and pencil when I feel like they should provide something through, through digital. And then they also don't give you great tips. So they have like a brief video of how to solve reading comprehension questions, and I felt like it was not enough. You think you know how to read, but you really don't, especially for reading comprehension for LSAT. Like, you've read your whole life, you feel like you know all the vocabulary, but that's not relevant. It's like a scavenger hunt, and you have to know what you're looking for. And so if I just use this for my prep for reading comprehension, I would have not done well. I would have need more tips and stuff, and I would have need someone to work with me. So pretty much overall, it's an average. You're gonna get a good bit of stuff with LSATMax, and you're not. I really recommend them the most for their logical reasoning, and I'm also going to recommend them for their prep test because it breaks everything down. And if you need it to be broken down like visually so that you know what concept you're not doing the best on, that LSATMax is probably the best for that. Now, there is something that I will warn people about because, I feel like in terms of their staff and stuff, I feel that they are, they're on it for the most part. When you need help for something that's a tech related thing, if you're talking about their tutors and stuff like that, that's a whole different story. And I don't feel like I have the valid experience to talk about their tutors. But so with the LSATMax staff, so like I said in the beginning, the reason I mainly am making this video is because I don't want people to participate in a prep course just because someone from the staff is really pushing them to do. And I guess it's because I'm very naive and stuff like that, and I don't know when to draw the line and say no is no, and I can't afford it right now, or, let me, research everything before I go with your course. There was a situation where I had a particular staff member on LSATMax, and I don't know how they got my number. I don't really remember, but when you sign up, you give them your email. They give you like a free, like a free trial or whatever, and it's not going to give you access to all the detail stuff, but you get your basics, And so I was having the free trial. And during that time, I would get messages incessantly from one of the staff members. It was ridiculous. It was to the point where I would say it was, what's it called? I'm trying to find the best word, but the word I'm just going to say, it was getting to the point where it was inappropriate. And I am just saying this because, the job of these people is to try to get you to go through this course and, get you to, pick out their course because that's their job. But for someone who's never taken the LSAT, and I shouldn't have told them that I have never taken it before, so I don't know what to use, they are really, oh, well, you should really consider it, and have you thought about taking our course yet? And there were 2 incidents that I've had with a staff member where they would call me at very inappropriate times, and I never agreed for them to call me ever. I was not even expecting them to call me. One time was when I was in the middle of a test in one of my classes. It was in the middle of the day, and they were calling me. And I didn't get in trouble for it. It was just buzzing there. But when I looked, it was the LSATMax people. Another time was when I was supposed to have a meeting with, I did a lot of club stuff. I was the president of God knows how many things, but so there was one time, and I picked up the phone, and I was like, hello, sorry, and they're like, oh, have you thought about buying the prep course yet? And mind you, it was like a solid month before I agreed, like 3 weeks to 6 weeks that I agreed, and they were just consistently doing that. And in the beginning, I believe it's reasonable to try to sell you into something, but at some point, it got to the point where it was too much, and I budged in because I was like, oh my god, I gave all my time in, and I feel like I have to do this. Like, I feel like they've put in so much time for me to do this, and it must be a good course. No, don't fall for that. I'm telling you right now, like, if reading comprehension is your worst, don't get it. If you need help with LR, it may be worth it, but it's overpriced, and their game sections are pretty good. But would I recommend them for their game sections? No. So don't let anyone guilt you into buying something. And if you need to tell them to stop calling you, tell them to stop calling you, because it gets inappropriate at some point. So now my next thing I didn't make notes for this. Oh man. So Khan Academy. Khan Academy, it's free, which is pretty great, and it was actually the first platform that I used before I found LSATMax. And Khan Academy, I would say it's the best for helping you stay consistent and for building both your LR and also I would say reading comprehension too, I feel like I've gotten better with reading comprehension because of Khan Academy. So Khan Academy pluses is that it's free. It helps build LR for me personally. It helped build LR. And it was also pretty great for reading comprehension. I would say with Khan Academy, one downfall is that I felt like a lot of things were repeated, like a lot of questions were repeated, and that I was just doing the same things over and over and over again. And if you haven't used Khan Academy, they basically make you take a diagnostic exam, and then they give you a set of questions that you need to work on, in order to get to the next levels. They have different levels, and each levels has a series of questions. And I've heard this many times before. If you want to get better with your LSAT experience, you have to redo questions over and over and over again. That is true. However, I felt like the amount of questions that they provided, it wasn't, I felt like you could only progress so much with Khan Academy. And you're definitely going to need outside books for the logic games and stuff like that. Like, I will say for both LSATMax and for Khan Academy, you're not going to get by just by using those platforms alone. At least for me, because I recognize that they had their strengths and they had their weaknesses in certain places. And at the end of the day, you're investing your time and your money. So I'm just letting you know. Khan Academy, I would give it an average score. I'm just not going to say that you can rely on it 100%, but you do progress a lot, and I did see myself getting better through Khan Academy, but I also did with LSATMax. I used them in conjunction. So without my prep course overall, by using these two things, and let me tell you something, when I was studying for this, I was consistently taking prep exams, like weekly. I was taking prep exams. I started off with a 135, and now I'm at a 154, around 154. So I've gained a lot of points studying on my own, and this is without having a tutor. I believe I can study better without having a tutor. So just keep this in mind. I feel like I can make more, or I could say more, but I feel like I've, done my due. And the reason why I haven't said 100% so many things about Khan Academy is because I was mainly using LSATMax. Khan Academy was something I was trying to build extra questions in, trying to do extra with it. So yeah. So the next things I am going to use are 7 Sage, and then I think I'm gonna get more power score books, but I'm just gonna hold off and then focus on 7 stage right now because I've heard a lot of good things. But I'm not gonna recommend it or not recommend it. I'm just saying that I've heard good things when it comes to logic games. And if I get better, then I'll let you guys know. But for right now, my focus is definitely on reading comprehension and logic games. So yeah, I hope this was helpful, and I hope you've made it through the end because I know I talked a lot. So yes, and good luck on your guys's, your prep exams. If you're taking an LSAT in the future, wish you luck. You got this.